Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaylin and this is Full Purpose and Heart. This is a channel where I share a lot of homeschooling videos, tips, and tricks. And in this particular video, I'm going to be completing my training for how to make your own Lapbooks. If you have not seen my Lapbooks 101 or 201 videos, I'm gonna have you stop now, go back and watch those videos. Because in this video, I'm going to assume that you understand the basics of how to make these Lapbooks. This particular video, I'm going to be talking specifically about a little bit more complex mini books and how you can make your Lapbook a little bit more interesting and diverse as you begin to make your own. A big disclaimer here, number one, if you can find someone on the World Wide Web who has already made a Lapbook for you, may I encourage you to pay it forward, thank them for their creativity and their services, and just buy the Lapbook, because making your own Lapbook is very labor intensive. It takes a lot of time, and the product, although will be perfect and you'll be so proud of it, it does take time. Assuming that you have searched the World Wide Web and you have not found what you're looking for, that's what brings you here, then we're gonna go ahead and cover 5 different books that you can put to create some diversity in just how your Lapbook looks, okay? So let me show you which books we're gonna do. Then we're gonna turn around the camera and I'm gonna do it on my computer. Another disclaimer, I am not a graphic designer. I do not know how to do fancy schmancy things. I just kind of MacGyvered it together, and this is how I do it. So I'm sharing it with you so that you can understand how to do it, okay? Also, my children were in the room when I was recording it, so although the editing I did as best as I can, you may catch a couple glimpses of them here or there during that editing, okay? All right, so these are 2 Lapbooks that I have made. I showed you these in my 201 video. This is a book called Over the Hill to Nugget. It's a book that's available through the Good and the Beautiful library. I love it, love it, love it, and I'm super excited to use it with my 2nd grader this year. So I have a couple of books that I'm gonna show you. One of them is going to be this one. I call it just like a pull-up book, and it has several different pages that you can have. So I'm gonna show you how to make that one. Another one is this flower book with the word characters on the inside. So I'll show you how to make that one here in just a second. Another one that I give you is going to be this one. It's a stackable pages book with all of the pages kind of stacked like this. Again, I will show you at the end of this video these books so you can see them. I am going to show you how to make this treat one. The concepts are the same if you want to make any special shape. I'm not super creative, so I've only made like this one. I made this one once, so like a little fish. So depending on what your chapter is or your questions are, you might want to make like some specialty shape. I'm going to show you how to make these stackable doors, and these ones have like a special like whatever triangle thing. I'll show you how to make that. And then one more I think is in this book I'm going to show you is just the standard. This is the first book I'll show you here in just a second. Just your standard opening multiple door and how you want to do that, okay? So let's turn the camera around. I'll try to show you these few things. Be patient with me. This video can get a little bit lengthy, but I do show you how you can make those diversified books. They are not harder, they're just a few more steps. So let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and get this training started. So I am going to be using Microsoft PowerPoint. This isn't the only way that you can do it or the only program. This is just how I learned it, and so I will show you what I do. Again, I am not a graphic artist or any kind of designer. I just kind of scrapped it together, and so I'm showing you how I do it in case you have any interest, okay? So if you don't know how I made these title pages, you want to go back to my Lapbooks 201 course and catch up on that, because I'm going to assume you already know your PowerPoint program, where everything is. I'm not gonna like be really slow in showing that information. I'll just show you the basics of how you go ahead and build these pockets, okay? Or these mini books, I guess is the right word. All right. So the first mini book I want to show you is going to be a multiple door book. in a rectangle format. So the best way to go about doing this is to go to the Tables tab and create a table that has 2 columns in it. And depending on how many doors you want, that's how many rows you're going to do. I wouldn't recommend more than 5 doors. It gets a little bit big and crowded that way. So stick between 3 and 5 and you're going to have a good pocketbook for you, okay? So with this one, we're going to first and foremost always change it so that it's just outlined. Go ahead and change the dimensions so that each of those doors is going to be a nice good size. Please make sure as you're making these books, sometimes it's a trial and error. You may need to print it out, put it onto your Lapbook section, like where you want it, just to kind of get the dimensions of how big it is, if it's too big, if it's too small. Again, it's just kind of a trial and error, and after time you can kind of get an idea of how large you want the books. But this one will be folded in half, so this right here is going to be the dimensions that you're looking at, okay? So we're going to go ahead and highlight the left side of my column here. I'm going to merge these cells, and this is going to be the back side of my pockets. It will also be where the backside to what the students are going to write the answers for their questions on. I like to put a little image here that shows this is the gluing section so that, it kind of clarifies where the students are going to be putting their glue. I also like to highlight and change my borders to be about a 2.25 point width. That way it's just a little bit more, I don't know, dimensionized for whatever. Okay, another thing I like to do is just to kind of make these squares or these doors pop a little bit. I do that by creating another rectangle shape. I kind of get an eyeball, like a little border here, and put it in the middle. That was not done very well, but you get the idea. And then I'm going to go and change the border so it's just a strict straight line. Switch the straight line to a dashed line here. Now, it's not really the right size. I don't really like that size, but there you go. Okay? A quick tip, if you're having a hard time figuring out, like you can't get it to just get right where you want it, if you change the magnification and you get really close, then it'll make it possible so you can change that further and closer away so you can have a better distance. Because sometimes when you're too far away, then the program's just going to jump to the next line. And if you want to be a little more precise, then just zoom in. Okay? That's a little tip for you. I'm going to duplicate this, put it down here, and we'll duplicate it 2 more times just to set it on there. All right, so this is the basis of your book. On the front here, you can go ahead and put, like this particular book as your main characters, put your questions or whatever it is that you're trying to highlight within these 4 doors. There's a couple things you can do just to kind of make it a little fancier. So here's one example. If you'd like to put like a circle, you can just get that oval shape, double click it. I sometimes, if I add an additional shape, I like to put an outline on it like so. Just kind of makes it pop. And then you can type your character's name on it if you like to do that. That is a character from the book Over the Hills to Nugget. So that's kind of fun. And then I always, of course, have to change my font because that is just how I roll. Make it nice and big so that you can see. Once I make my first shape, I just, again, Control-D, copy and paste that, or duplicate as Control-C, and then you can put the next character in there. Okay? Control-D. You have your next character. I don't know, Becca. All right, so that's kind of the idea. Now, if you'd like to just do it without the circle, you can do that too. See? And then just change the font to whatever you want it to be. And there you go. Now this will be printed out. The student can cut it out, fold it in half so that this portion right here is on the back, glue it down, and then they'll cut on these solid lines to make their doors. So it's just a quick and easy way that you can go ahead and make a nice multiple door lap book. All right, let's go on to example number 2. we're going to be doing a similar book. I call this the flower book, and it's going to have a couple of doors. I like to use it for characters or vocabulary words. If you have multiple questions, this is just a multiple door book in a different shape. Now for this one, I recommend that you do either the diamond or the pentagon. You can use a hexagon, but the more doors that you put on there, it just becomes a little more crowded, and you have to be careful with how much space you need depending on the question. So for this example, I'm going to go ahead and show you the regular pentagon. Put your basic shape in the center of your page. Hitting that shift button down as you drag it across will maintain the proportions, and it gives it a nice symmetrical shape. All right, make it so that it is just a simple outline. And of course, well, I'll do that in just a second. Okay, let's add our door shapes. This is going to be a basic shape. It's called the chord. It's kind of like a half circle, all right? Again, holding that shift button down, you're going to pull apart so that you can get your nice shape. And then you'll try and turn it around or turn it so that it just fits ever so nicely as much as you can on the edge there. It's never going to be a perfect fit, so depending on how much of a perfectionist you are will depend on how much you love this project or not. Okay, slide all the way over so it's just a simple outline. And there is your first one. Now I'm going to duplicate this and put it all the way around the pentagon. All right, so now you have your basic shape. You'll notice that my little half circles don't exactly match perfectly. I have some space in between each of them, but it's okay because as you fold these half circles over, they will overlap, and you're going to want to have just a little bit of space because otherwise it gets a little bit tricky. Now I'm going to put my glue here image right on the back side of this particular, of this part of the shape, because this is where the student will glue. And then on these outsides is where you're going to put your question. Now it gets a little bit tricky. Again, please feel free to trial and error. Print out this page and test to see if you've got the words written in the correct way. But I'm going to use a text box this time because I do have to rotate the words depending on how I want them after I fold it. So trial and error, but I'll show you as best I can the direction to put them so that when you fold them over, then they're going to be facing the right way when you glue it down, okay? All right, so we have, I'm going to do characters' names. The first one's Ernie, and when you're on the top here, they're going to go upside down. Whoop. Let me change the font because that's going to drive me crazy. Picasso. Okay, make it large. There we go. And kind of straighten it out as much as you can. Okay, on this side here, again, you want the word to be upside down. Now, when you come around the edge, you're going to actually make it so that it's facing inward, because when you fold that door up, you want the words not to be upside down. Again, this one is going to kind of be facing inward. And then on the outside here, okay, so anything on the bottom, try to have it facing in. Anything towards the top, have it. All right, so that's kind of a basic idea. Of course, each of these would be different names to get the general idea. All right, so this is door number 2. Now, another thing that I like to do on this particular one is have a square box similar to this and just have the word characters in there. Maybe make that font a little bigger because this page, or this little piece, they can then cut out and glue inside so that when they open up the doors, then it'll show. All right, I am going to show you how to do a fold out that has several doors to it. These ones are also very simple. All of them are very simple. It just is some extra steps. So for this one, you're going to do, well, you could do it in 2 columns. Let's go ahead and do it in 2 columns. It'll make the cutting a lot faster. And then for each of those, you're going to make it 4 long. Again, you don't want to make too many doors because it's just going to complicate it and just, I mean, if you have it grow and grow and grow, then it's really too big and it gets complicated. So try to keep it, you know, your questions minimal. These are great for vocabulary is typically how I do it, but anything works if, whatever you want to do. All right, again, I like to make my borders 2.25. It just makes them nice and fancy. And now for this one, the words are going to be on most of these, but you do have to identify which boxes are going to be the glue down boxes. So for me, for that one, it's going to be this top left cell right here is going to be where the glue goes, and they will glue down this bottom cell right here. Sometimes it takes a little bit of explaining, but once your students start realizing how to do it, then it's not so difficult. Okay, this first box here is going to be your title. So we can make this dotted line box like we did before, just to kind of make it look a little bit more fancy, whatever. And then you can put your title in there, whatever your title may be. And now these squares are going to be your vocabulary words. So you can do it in like a text box if you'd like. You can just kind of outline them like so and then write your word. Like that, I guess, because I'm not very creative in my training here. And then the fancy schmancy, Control D, will duplicate all of the styles that you've done and allow you to just put them where you want to put them. There we go. Okay, so then we're going to change it. We've got word 2, word 3. This will be word 4. Word 5, and word 6. You can put this outline square on each of them if you'd like to, just to kind of make it fancy. But you will need to make sure that it doesn't have a fill. And then you can do that if you want. But of course, it just depends on how fancy you want to be. All right? So now when your student goes to do this, they're going to cut the whole square out. They will cut down this line here. And then put the glue here and put word 3 on the top of here, and then they can fold it back and forth and back and forth. Now, another way that you can do that, it's a little bit more labor intensive, but it is possible, is to create 2 4-square tables, making sure that they are the same dimensions. And this way your students will know that they're cutting 2 tables out, and then just follow all of the steps that I just showed you. But at least this way then they'll know you're not going to have the confusion of what lines do I cut on. These are for a little bit more advanced lap bookers, because otherwise you could get students cutting on these horizontal lines and it makes kind of a big mess. So just make sure that you're explaining to your students that they're going to glue these 2 pieces together to make one large pullout. All right? So that's kind of a fun one. Okay, I want to show you really quick how to do one of these multiple door books that have a fun shape on as the door. They're really simple, and I'm just going to show you if you want to switch up kind of the aesthetic and the look of your book. So the first step is to make your back door. This is the one that's going to be glued down. And then the second shapes you're going to want to do, you have a couple of choices. You could do the one that looks like a sales tag here, which is typically the one that I do, actually. Or you could do like a triangle or something, but this really is the easiest. So switch it around so it kind of lands on the edge there. Double click it so that it's just an outline, and then this yellow triangle or diamond, I guess it is going to make it so that you can change the those lines. Okay, so then you can kind of stretch this out a little bit, make it just like a nice little doorway. And then you have your trusty Control D, which is going to duplicate it. Okay, if you want to, you can group these to make sure that they all stay the same size, and then line it up so that it makes a perfect door that way. Now, this way you have just a little bit more kind of fun, fancy stuff that you can put here. And then I would go ahead and use a text box if I were going to write in here so that I can make sure it's in the center. And you can, you know, type whatever you want to type. Sometimes if you have only 2 pictures, but you want to do these 3 ones, or excuse me, 2 questions, then you can put an image here in this center box. Check back on my other Lapbook 201 video, and I do put images a lot on those as well. Just make sure you're careful with your clip art so that you're not stealing anybody else's work. Okay, so that's another fun one that you can do. All right, so we are going to show you one more door. That one was kind of a bonus door because I know I told you I was only going to do 4. But here we will do a 5th door or a 5th little mini book. So this one I'm going to do is going to be a stacking book. And for this one, I just want you to envision in your head, we're going to go from the bottom to the top. So get yourself a square and you'll put it however big you want your mini book to be. And this rectangle is going to be the bottom of your rectangle. Okay. Sometimes I'll go ahead and put my text box here on the bottom. It will help me remember what is what. And then you can type your question, but for the sake of this, I'm just going to title it bottom. All right. The next thing we're going to do is select your rectangle and get your fancy Control D. I would line it up so it's exactly on top of it, and then just move that bottom one so that the words of your previous text is visible. And then move that over to the side. And now you have your second one. Your trusty Control D to duplicate. And then do the whatever. I think, let's say we're going to do 3 or 4 total. So this will be the 3rd level. Now we're going to duplicate this one. Put it exactly on top. Move it on up so that it's the perfect size. This one's going to be, now I have to rotate it so it fits on my page, and I try to use as little paper as possible. Okay, now we have, this is our second layer rather. And now you're going to notice that I have no more room on this page. So this particular door is going to take a second page to print it out. These 2 I'm going to delete entirely. I have this door that I'm working with, and we're going to duplicate it. Make sure that this second one is exactly the right size so that my words fit perfectly, and go ahead and delete that. Now, you can have this be, because this is now my first layer. Oh, it goes underneath, so that doesn't work, but you get the point. So this is going to be my first layer. If you want to create an actual like title space, just go ahead and duplicate that first layer, bump it up so that you can read your words, pull it off to the side, and now you can have whatever picture or illustration you want to put here, or you can just write text and just have it be, you know, the title of your chapter or whatever you want it to be. So The Surprises Come True is the name of one of the titles in the book On the Road to Nugget. And then make sure the font is what you want it to be, and you can make it nice and big. Now, sometimes I'll even make the font so that the students have to color it in. I'll show you just really quickly a fast way that I do that. One of those fonts is KG Red Hands. It's just nice and, you know, a chunky font that the students can color in. And then what I do, double click on that, and right here you make your fill so that your fill is white or no fill, and then make it so that it has a line. Okay, so I double clicked on my font here, and this is the format screen or the format option, and now I just clicked on those 2 things. Now my student can color in those words if you wanted to have that as a part of the exercise. And then you'll just go through and write your questions on each of these, whatever those may be depending on the chapter. So in this particular book, the father brings home 5 surprises and he gives a clue. So one of the clues was the surprise is the sound of Michigan. So then you could do that. And then on this portion of the square is where your student will answer the question or draw the picture or whatever they want to do. Now when they cut all of these off, they'll layer on top of each other, and then you can staple them, put like little staples. In fact, that's something that you can do, is just get one of these little lines and draw a line here and then duplicate it so it's the same size, and it kind of shows that this is where the staples are going to go. So anyway, that's another option for that. All right, so this last book that I'm going to show you is the form of a shape. I'm going to try to show you how I did a candy, and it's really tricky. It's really just a matter of trial and error. Again, I am not a graphic artist. I just kind of, you know, pieced this together, kind of ramshackled it together. So take it as you will, depending on how much of a perfectionist you are, will depend on whether or not this is something you're going to want to do. So I will show you how I made a little piece of candy. One of our chapters, the boy got some candy, or it was a treat that he got, so I made a candy for him, and that was the Lapbook shape. So in my head, I just kind of thought, well, what does a candy look like? And you have to try to use the shapes that you have. So here we have a rounded edged rectangle. You can move these in or out as much as you want to try to make those edges a little more soft. So I used that as the base. Okay, so now for the outside, what I did, and it is definitely not masterful, but I just drew it. So you come down here to the curve and click on that. And what I'm going to be making are just the edges of the wrapper. So I start in the middle, and you kind of like go out and then just curve it around. Curve and curve. It's nothing special. I'm going to do 4 little curves here, and then you put it back, okay? Double click and it'll make your actual shape. Double click it again so that you can make it just a regular line. Maybe you'll want to increase the weight there so that it matches, but in essence, that's what it is. Then your handy dandy, Control D. You'll flip that around, and you can like stick that on the other end as well. And then if you want to put just a little bit more shadowing to it, it's just, again, depending on how much time you want to spend. But for me, I sometimes get a little excited. So then you just want to kind of outline this like this. It makes a straight line. And then if you double click it again, change the line color so that it's a little bit more gray, and maybe make it so it doesn't have that shadow on there. You can kind of see it goes that way, and then again, just go with that drawing tool, put a couple of lines, doop, like so. Make those black, or you can make them whatever color you want. Again, moving in really close sometimes gives you a little bit more control as to what those are doing, so that you can, whatever, okay? Control D, and then I'm going to drag them over here so that I can have them for the other side. And then you just kind of rotate them around. Well, sometimes that works. Well, you're going to have to group them, I see now, so that they rotate together like so. There we go. Okay, now you have your candy. Then you can just get your text box and type in what the actual thing is. So the name of the chapter. Now, one more step. I like to duplicate the whole thing, because you do have to have something to fold down. So in this sense, this is what you need to do. Highlight everything with the exception of the words. Right click, group, and group the whole thing together. Then you're going to duplicate that and put it up here. You'll need to rotate it around so that they fold nicely. And then you can just put that up there like that. You'll also notice now that all of this is kind of in the way. So again, as far as how clean you want your final product to be, I would just go ahead and take a rectangle or maybe a circle. And I would fill this in like so. It's It's not the cleanest way to do it, but it's the only way I know how. So that's what works for me. All right. Oh, it's got that darn shadow on there. You don't want that. It just is like a makeshift eraser, if you will, so that you don't have to worry about the confusion. And then, hold on, let's ungroup these. Grab this guy and bring him to the front. There we go, like so. Anyway, you get the general idea. This is how I make like a shape. I'm usually very simplified with my shapes because I don't know what I'm doing. And if I can't figure out how to do it just with whatever I've got with these few tools, then it typically is, it's just not worth my effort. But little things like this are just easy and nice to do. Okay, there you have it. Hopefully you found something in this video that was helpful. I tried to teach it as clear as I could, but again, I assume that you have an understanding of Microsoft PowerPoint. I believe you can probably do it on any program. I'm just not familiar with anything else, so PowerPoint is what I use. If you can do it on another program, tell me, show me, or explain it, or maybe put in a comment below for those other viewers who may be interested in using some of these and transferring them into a program that they have on their computers. So hopefully you found some value in this. Please subscribe to Full Purpose and Heart, to my channel here. If you did find value, or if you have other videos that I put out there that are interesting to you, give me a thumbs up and we will hopefully catch you in another video. Bye guys.